Welcome, everybody, to the Loonacy Podcast. My name is Tony. I'm here with Dave, David, and Connor. Dave Stevens, David Sterling, Connor Ennis. I'm Tony Pervenanzi. We are coming to you today from David's deck.
It's good to see you guys again.
Yeah, we're back together again.
We were just talking about the last time we did this as a group was early March, I think 7th, Connor, you mentioned.
So it was right after United played against San Jose, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, it's been so long that I forgot how to set up everything with the 4 microphones. Because I haven't had to.
It is good to be back in person again. Of course, we're not at a brewery yet because of the restrictions, but now Governor Timmy Walz has decided to turn the dial back up again. So our next podcast will likely be at a brewery because they're lifting a lot of the restrictions for breweries, restaurants, and bars. So I think we should be able to get in a brewery in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so.
We are, of course, drinking local craft beers, and David went out to our one of our favorite breweries, Blue Wolf, down here in Brooklyn Park, and picked up a bunch of beers for us. Let's start with Connor. What did you get from Blue Wolf?
So I got the No Coast APA, American Pale Ale. It is 6.3 ABV. And I've had a bunch of American Pale Ales before, and this one is not like the rest. This one tastes more Belgian than anything else. It's a little bit more of a caramely feeling. But I'm not usually a Belgian fan, but this one is really good. It's a little bit more. You can tell where the pale ale comes from in there. It's a little bit more hoppy than most Belgians, but you also get the caramely taste of a Belgian ale. So it's really good.
Cool.
David, what'd you get?
So I went with the strawberry lemonade My Oh My Bach.
Oh.
So it's a My Bach with strawberry lemonade.
Ooh.
I think it's quite tasty.
Sounds tasty.
And I could probably do a growler of this. It's fantastic. Like on my own, it's very good. Very light, like most My Bachs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a little sweetness to it. It's good.
I went with the Hot Bod Hazy Pale Ale, 5.3%, so not too bad. It is it's a hazy pale ale. I mean, that's what it is. Hazy pale ales to me are pretty much all the same.
Yeah,
tastes good. It's a quick drinker. You can down some of these in a pretty short time period. So, Dave, what'd you get?
And I ended up going with the Wolf Cry. And speaking about quick drinkers, this is another one of those. It's I don't know, you might call it one of their flagship beers, but what it is, it's a rye ale. Mm-hmm. And so it's very light, it's very subtle, but at the same time, the rye gives it a little bit of they call it a twang.
Yep.
A little bit of an interesting flavor that you wouldn't normally see in your typical beers. But this one's interesting because, and I haven't actually I've had this before at Blue Wolf, but this is one of their bases for the infusions that they do there.
Oh, yes.
I know we've been there a couple times, and they're really kind of big on doing those beer infusions with extra flavors or beer, and so it works well for that. And I will say that we are all about local here on this podcast, local beers, local brews, and this is about as local as it can get for where we are recording. Without getting into specific details, this has to be the closest craft brewery to where we are right now.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
I'd say, a couple
without
miles.
a doubt. I mean, as crow flies, it's not even a mile.
Yeah.
So, thanks for picking these up, and it's appropriate that we're drinking them here today.
Yeah, and Blue Wolf, they have a patio open right now, which is not really a patio. It's more in their parking lot, and it's kind of bring your own chairs. They might have some chairs, but it's kind of bring your own. That's what a lot of these breweries had to do. They had to kind of look outside the box and kind of do some quick thinking about how they're going to open their patios up. But now with the restrictions going away, I think these places will be able to have a lot more people in them, and they will be a lot busier, and you will see a lot of these craft breweries kind of pick up from what they were a couple months ago. So.
Well, and what's interesting is I picked these beers up literally minutes after they did the press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And they had no idea. Blue Wolf had absolutely no idea anything happened. and so I asked him, what are you guys going to do now that they're opening bars and restaurants up? He's like, what?
Oh,
Oh,
And I was like, oh yeah, and I had to pull up the article because I was like, it's completely changing.
yep.
Yeah, I mean, the first for indoor now, what is it? The first step is going to be here in
50%.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Was it
50%,
50% indoor?
yep.
Oh, I was even
Yeah.
thinking it was a little bit lower. I thought it was
No,
25.
Governor
Okay.
Timmy turned his dial up again, didn't he?
That's right. Turn that dial up.
Yeah. And that's good for these small businesses.
Of course
they
it
need
is.
that. Yeah.
And, like I said, we'll get back out to a brewery hopefully in 2 weeks and be able to enjoy some beers from there and get back in the swing of things.
I'm excited, man. I haven't been
Oh, yeah.
brewery. I used to go brewery hopping once every couple months or so, and we'd go to a different part of the Twin Cities area.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I've been missing out a lot over the past
yeah.
few months.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
been...
easily. I think back and I look over the last 3 months and I like, what do I miss the most? I mean, a lot of it has to do with getting together with people, but as far as activities,
Yeah.
Yes, I like dining out occasionally and stuff like that, but I think, I'd say close to the top, if not the top, was the breweries. That's something that we do on the weekends, either together or with other people, and that's easily the thing I miss, probably.
Breweries
the
at
most.
United Games.
Yeah,
Well, there you go. Sporting events, without
events.
touching the obvious. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I thought I was going to go through serious sports withdrawal
Yeah.
during this time, but it honestly, looking back now, it hasn't been as bad as I thought. And I'm not sure why that is, but it wasn't as bad as I
Yeah.
thought.
Well,
I'd actually agree.
think if your job was a sports bettor, though. If you're betting on sports.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about withdrawals, those guys are probably going, I need something to go back to, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But before we get into anything soccer-related, everything like that, we do need to talk about what happened in this state last weekend. Pretty much all last week.
Beginning Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
Yeah.
George Floyd was murdered by a police officer, and that started a whole bunch of protests and then riots in Minneapolis. So we were, we had curfews in place. We had the National Guard out there. It became really a big tipping point for, racial equality and the Black Lives Matter movement, not only in Minnesota, but around the country and around the world.
Right.
And we've seen some great things come out of that, and we've seen some really bad things come out of that. But on this podcast, we usually don't get into political type of stuff, but I don't think this is really political. This is Black Lives Matter, and I think all of us are aware of these types of things happen in our country every day. And we need to be, as citizens of the United States, we need to be aware of it, and we need to fight against it. We need to listen. The big thing they've been talking about is listening to people of color and hear what they're saying about what's going on in this country,
Right.
and stand by them and support them, and even be involved in some of these things. We did see a lot of protesters who were white at these protests that were involved, and good for them. They're on the front lines and they're trying to make a difference. So it's been a tough week, and to top it all off, this is in the middle of a pandemic right now. So I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, we were talking before the podcast of how it's been very eye-opening. I brought up the fact that we were all pretty young, for the most part, when in 1992, when Rodney King was beaten and the ensuing riots occurred, and so we were old enough though to at least have an understanding of what was going on. But now, when we look back today and we look back at what happened on Memorial Day and the last week and a half, we're fully grown adults. We understand the workings of the world. We see what's going on. We've seen what's happened since 1992. We don't in any way experience this kind of stuff, but we have a bit of an idea of these things, and then to see it actually happen in our own backyard. I don't know if you guys watched it.
Yeah,
but I watched the video and I didn't realize what I was watching until it happened, I just remember like my gut sank.
Yeah.
I couldn't even I just couldn't believe the fact that I just watched someone die.
I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I heard what happened. I heard what happened, and he is just there were no words for me. I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. It was
I kind of felt like I had to. There was a lot of conversation before I did watch it, but I felt like I had to watch it. I mean, I thought it was my part of it. Just socially responsible thing to do just see what was happening. And I will say, like, this week has been so emotional, or this week and a half now has been so emotionally draining for everyone, and it's just such a tragic set of events and what happened. It's just it's undefensible, of course. The one thing I will say is I'm not happy. Happy is not the right word, but the response that we've seen, not only in Minneapolis and St. Paul, but across the country and across the world, I think has been substantial. And again, I'm not sure of my words to use, but I don't know if I should be ashamed, but I can tell you that this week and a half is the most I've thought about social injustice, Black Lives Matter, any of that stuff in my entire life, even like you brought up 1992, but this obviously we were younger. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, looking into researching things, getting myself educated like they're talking about doing. And I have to admit that as tragic as this is, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, right.
And I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that this is the way that we have to do it.
Right.
But it's opening a lot of opportunity for discussions about how we in the United States have I used this on social media last week, have been conditioned to just always support policing efforts, always support, always trust the police, always believe in the police are doing what's good. And I think it's opening up some amazing opportunities for us to have discussions about what it means to be more just in our criminal justice system.
Yes.
The institutional racism that's existed in our country has been around for really decades, and being able to have this opportunity to discuss these things, it's just interesting because so many of us, again, like I said, have been conditioned to just kind of accept the things that they are.
Yeah.
And again, it's unfortunate that this had to be the reason that we do it, but I mean, we've had how many in the last few months, I think.
You don't just talk about George Floyd. You talk about Ahmaud Arbery and her name is escaping me right now.
In St. Louis?
Yeah.
St. Louis?
Yeah.
She was shot
in
her sleeping.
Well, and that situation was screwed up too because she had dated a guy, and they barged in, and her boyfriend at the time, who wasn't the guy they were looking for in the first place, he pulled out his gun because he thought somebody was breaking into their house, and of course then the cops shot at him. But again, these I don't remember what they call these when they break into your house.
The no-knock raid.
No-knock raid.
Yeah.
Those types of things, I mean, those are terrible. We've seen it in Minneapolis. I think there was a story a couple years ago. It was a Hmong family, and the guy was shot there on a no-knock raid, and they were at the wrong place.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the type of things we're talking about, David, where we've been told to trust the police. Okay,
Right.
We've been told, hey, the cop says this, then do it. But then you look at these instances and you go, I don't trust police officers anymore. And the other thing with Minneapolis is 94% of their police officers do not live in Minneapolis. They don't know the situation happening in Minneapolis.
Right.
So when you have people from outside of the city coming in and policing that city, they have no they're not from there. They don't know what's going on.
Well, it's not their community.
It's not their community,
That's the whole
exactly
point.
right. They can't get involved because it's not their community. So I think that's one way they're going to start to do things. Is they're going to start saying, okay, we want cops living in the city to be cops for that city.
Yep.
That's what we want to have happen. And so that would be a big change. And I think that we're also seeing a lot of places now not allowing the Minneapolis Police Department be part of their security. The park board, I think, voted to say no more cops there.
University
of
Minnesota.
And
University of Minnesota, First Avenue. There's a lot of places that have done it.
I know the hospitals are leaning that way now too. I believe.
Yeah, and that just tells you that there's going to be places that are like, okay, we're done with this shit.
Well,
we're done.
And just in the last day or two, there's already, the council members are bringing up, they're looking at reforms for the, Minneapolis Police Department and maybe across the board of the state. But so far, they started locally with Minneapolis. As far as I think there were 6 different proposals. We don't need to get into detail, but
they're actually talking about disbanding the police force, which is, I could get into my political beliefs, but I'm not going to. That's extreme, but
it is.
There are a lot of people that believe maybe that's what needs to be done. And when you start getting to that point in a conversation, that tells you that shit has been going on far too long. And
because you have that you have that mentality when you talk about disbanding the police force, where you've got the pro and con. Where the pro, nobody trusts the police right now. After what happened with George Floyd. And so if you talk about disbanding the police, then oh great, we're not we're getting rid of a police force that right now we don't have confidence in. But on the flip side of that, you have the who's going to enforce the law. I say that with quotation marks. Enforce the law within the cities, though.
You have to have a good plan to do that.
Yeah.
You have to come up with something that's outside of the box type of thing, where you have different divisions that do it. And I see a lot of people on social media, friends of mine, the friend that I'm probably talking about, the one I've, she's saying, well, if you get rid of the police force, then the criminals just come rampant and do this. I'm like going, well, they're not just going to get rid of the police force and, have nobody around to protect you. It's going to be a different look to it.
Yeah. And this isn't going to happen overnight.
No.
I mean, but the important thing is that we're having these discussions. We weren't having these before. Mm-hmm. And I, you sit here and you brought it up, David. You talk about things like institutional racism and systemic racism. It's something that, and again, whether I don't need to go into my personal feelings, but at least it's something that I'm thinking about where because here we are, call it white privilege, and because that's what it is. It's not something that we as a group here had to really think about too much. But now here I am, and at least me personally, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I'm happy for that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I always go back to is, for years now, I've been arguing that our criminal code is too big. We have laws protecting us from ourselves, and we have these no victim crimes that lead to interactions with police that don't have to happen. Mm-hmm. Yep. And people, in all these years, a lot of people have, if I interact with people on social media, they call me nuts. And I'm like, but think about it. Philandro Castillo, he had a burned out taillight, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a legal gun owner. He said he had a firearm. He did everything you're supposed to. He still died. You have somebody like George, who may have passed a fake $20 bill. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily technically harm anyone. That's a pretty victimless crime.
Yeah.
And yet here he is. He's now died. You have constant interactions with police regarding noise violations and failure to yields and burned out tail lights and burned out headlights and not using your turn signals and then let's get into the discussion of drug crimes. Possession can put you in jail. Mm-hmm. And it's all of these things are examples of institutional racism that exist, that have been put in place to protect people from themselves, so to speak. And really, if you look back and you research it, you can see, they were put in place to impact very specific communities, very specific parts of communities. And you start seeing, the drug war, that was designed, I wholeheartedly believe it was designed to go after minorities, specifically people of color. It was, we have stuff going all the way back to, you could talk about zoning and neighborhoods. And back in the New Deal, they destroyed the Rondo neighborhood.
Yes, they did.
In St. Paul. And it was all, and part of that was they set up ways in which you can create mortgages that block people of color from buying a home. And it's like all of these things add up to this institutional racism, and the enforcement always ends up being the police.
That's right.
And I'm excited for the fact that we're finally having a discussion. White people are finally having a discussion about how our police force and the way we do things in this country, law and order, we're all about law and order, has been geared towards further marginalizing these communities. And I'm with you, Dave. I've thought a lot about it this past week. It's sobering. It's interesting to have that introspective look at how, even though the moment I see a cop, I'm like, shit, am I speeding? Am I doing anything wrong? I still know 99% of the time, if I get pulled over, it's going to be it. It's going to be it. And it's going to be done. Whatever. I don't have to worry about everything else that could happen. When I see like a car pulled over with multiple squads behind them, I immediately think it's probably a person of color, because that's just how our police force has become.
But wait, we're not supposed to be doing racial profiling anymore, David. Come on.
Well, that's exactly correct. We're not supposed
to. Didn't we have a big thing about that years ago, about racial profiling?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it went away.
Yeah.
And if you still looked at the stats, you'd find out it's still flipping happening.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people, even in this past week, that have said, well, a lot of white people get beaten up, get shot by the police. There are a lot of white people that do. But proportionately speaking, it's people of color. I mean, and we can't allow the conversation to get deflected that way.
Right.
Yep.
Unless it's specific to the fact that finally we're getting our heads out of our asses and saying we need to address our policing. And
we do have a lot of deflectors, though, especially on social media.
Oh yeah.
Deflect. This isn't a problem. It isn't a problem. Whatever it was, and it's like, no, you people just, you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
right.
You don't want to look inside and have to deal with the
Yeah.
things that you actually think and believe.
Right. And who does? I mean, honestly, who wants
Nobody
to do that?
does.
Nobody wants to do
it's
that.
It's going to be uncomfortable, like these conversations that we have to have, like the education that we have to have. It's going to be uncomfortable, and that's the response that we've seen worldwide has been just amazing. It's being talked about. Everybody's talking about it. Or I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are, much more so than I've ever seen in my life, or at least I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
So if anything comes out of it.
Yeah. So again, it was a bad week, and we're all of us here are looking internally and thinking about things that are going to change in ways that we never thought possible, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
So let's switch over to soccer. And before we get to soccer, though, it is soccer related. Because of what has happened this last week, we have seen a lot of people lose their places of business, lose their jobs, all kinds of stuff because of what they posted on social media. And this deals with soccer because we had a player for, was it the Galaxy?
The Galaxy. It was Alexander Katai.
He was let go by the Galaxy because of comments his wife made on social media.
Yeah.
So we're living now in a society where you should have been careful to begin with, and you shouldn't put these things out for the public, and your beliefs are your beliefs and whatever you want to do. But remember, you put them on social media and things are going to come back.
Well,
We've had a couple cops resign in Minnesota because of things they put. We had the mayor of Black Duck, Minnesota, resigned of a comment he made about the protesters in the truck running through the protesters.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't even realize there was a black duck in Minnesota.
I did not know either.
And Katai is an interesting case, and I mean, I don't know. Obviously, none of us know the conversations that the club and Katai had personally, but like, it's an interesting case only because he didn't make those comments; it was his wife that made those comments. So it's a 1 degree, at least 1 degree of separation. Right. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that this is what we were just talking about, like things like that should not be tolerated in this society. And
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that usually, I mean, I think for the most part, when I married my wife, I had a pretty good grasp on what she believed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you would think that he had to have had a reasonable understanding of his wife's opinions on some of these things, at least you think.
I would think all of these things.
Yeah, and
this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with.
And so the fact that you're choosing to not only associate, but spend literally the rest of your life with them, to the point that you're probably spending 70% of your day every day. It maybe, and I think this is probably where LA Galaxy is going with it, is you have to think that there might be some agreement between the two of them on these subjects.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I view it. It's, on the other hand, it could be a business decision. I mean, I guess you'd hope that people don't exist that actually have these opinions, but based on what she put on social media, I suppose you could try and argue that it was just a heat of the moment stupid thing to say, but you're an adult. Maybe if you're 15, 16, okay. Mm-hmm. You just said something stupid, but I have a feeling that's what LA was doing. They're like, you know what, you married to this person. There's got to be some sort of agreement.
Yeah. Any rational person would have talked about it before they got married.
Yeah. And let's flip the script a little bit. Go back to locally. Bob Kroll, who is the head of the Minneapolis Police Union.
Federation.
He is married to a woman who is a reporter and newscaster for Channel 4, WCCO. She had to have known when she married this guy that he was the way he is.
You'd think.
But they have not let her go yet.
Right.
And they've got a lot of people saying, I'm never going to watch your channel again because she's married to Bob Kroll, and that's that. So I think it all depends on, what company you work for, whether or not they're going to, go after you or not go after you.
Yeah, and, we could bring up Holy Land Deli.
Yeah.
And how the CEO ended up firing his daughter after numerous racist comments. And then all of a sudden you start finding out that there's more to it. He ended up losing his lease in the Midtown. And people were like, well, man, it was his daughter. And then we start finding out his daughter actually referenced in a tweet that this is kind of standard family conversation. And I don't remember exactly. She hashtagged something about family, what happens in the family or something like that. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, so maybe there's more to it. But, we don't know that entirely. But the reality is, you've got to be careful of what you're saying, what people that you're associated with are saying. I don't.
And I will say that before we get into the CBA and what's going on with MLS, MLS soccer, I don't think I've seen a lot of racist stuff coming out of the crowds in MLS.
No, and they have that they have the active kick racism out of football kind of thing.
But New York FC has had a few issues.
Well, and regardless of, I know where you're going. Like I was going to say, football soccer has always had an issue with racism.
Europe, it's terrible in Europe.
Yeah.
And it also south of the border, it has a tendency to. But I think in general in the United States, it's a weird anomaly with the U.S. in sports.
Yeah.
For some reason, we maybe it's the fact that I don't know. No, I have no idea. I don't want to make that statement after all. It's just a weird anomaly. One of my grandfathers was terribly racist, but he loved to watch the NFL on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't even make sense. I mean, as like an 8-year-old,
yeah,
I'm like, you do not like black people,
but
and yet you're watching football.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he enjoyed it. I mean, that's what he did on Sunday afternoons when he had time away from his farm. And it's like, how do it doesn't make any sense in the U.S. for some reason that stuff doesn't boil over like it does in Europe, and I don't know why that is.
The other thing is we shouldn't be ignorant to the issue either, and then we should talk about it like we're doing. And because C.J. Sapong recently made some comments to Taylor Twellman on his little, I guess you'd call it show
Banter.
or podcast, Banter.
Yeah.
And he called out the MLS as they have a serious lack of diversity. And he called that a systemic issue. It's one of these things. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
Well, it's rooted in some of these owners and teams,
without a doubt. Yeah.
And so why is there such a lack of diversity? Because there is. So it's at least these things are being addressed and being talked about now.
Yeah, we're in a brave new world here, guys.
Yeah.
Really, it's moving forward here, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple months and the next couple years, what changes are made and what comes out of this. Hopefully good things come out of this.
Without doubt, yeah.
And I think a lot of that, and not to be political, I think a lot of that will go towards what happens on November 3rd this year.
Yeah, it might.
Because you have a guy in charge of the United States right now who I don't think he really gives a shit about what's happening in this country in terms of racial stuff.
No,
I think
I don't
he's
think so.
more interested in keeping his Q rating up for his base, and that is something I've never seen. I guess I've never seen a president be as tone deaf to what's going on in this country as he has.
Yeah, I think he runs the country a lot like his company.
Yeah.
Like a CEO, president of a company, doesn't necessarily pay a ton of attention to the little things that are happening inside their company. The grand picture really is what they're more interested in. That's what he's kind of being. Now, with that said, our system of government is a bit like that on the federal side, where it's more grand picture. But
Again,
I'm just gonna avoid.
It's political. I get you.
Yeah.
We could go all the way down the rabbit
I'm not
hole.
going down
if we
the rabbit
wanted
hole.
to.
I mean,
So,
I had
my
something
own-
in my head, and I was
I
like,
have my
I don't
own
think
thoughts
I'm gonna go that
on
far yet.
the Trumper. I'm not going to get into it, but
Well, you mentioned, it's going to come down to what's happening on November 3rd. It's a little bit of a sidebar, but when I do have an interesting stat for you guys. During the Minnesota primary this year, people in Minnesota aged 18 to 30, only 13% of those people got out and voted during the primary. So I would say, please, for the love of God, get out and vote in the election.
And that's interesting. I don't know what the stats are historically for primary voting is, but I would assume it's significantly less than general elections.
Well, yeah, I mean, primary voting is generally the hardcores.
Well, you have to be like, if you were going to say get it, you'd have to be a registered, say, Democrat or Republican.
It depends on the state, but yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's. But even then, it's the people who vote in primaries are like they're active participants in the system.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
I have a feeling we will hit record numbers on November 3rd.
I certainly hope so.
But you're right, Connor. I mean, I think as a society, I think the more people from your community, the more people from your state that get out and vote, take participation at every level, whether it's primary or general election.
Well, didn't the general election last time when Trump and Hillary ran, didn't half the country not vote? Wasn't it like 50% or 45%
Oh yeah,
of the
it's
country?
almost always that. Yeah. It was I think it was one of the better ones, though. I think.
Yeah, it was one of the better ones. Yeah.
But I mean, to maybe be a little political here, I want people to vote, but I want people to vote their conscience and their principles.
Exactly.
Don't just go
Yes.
out and vote because you have a Democrat and a Republican.
That's right.
You vote whatever the hell you need to vote.
Yes.
If that even means a write-in, I need you to vote what you feel you need to vote.
Yes.
Exactly.
If it's socialist, if it's Green Party, if it's libertarian, if it is Republican or Democrat, fine, but understand what you're voting for. Don't
Exactly.
just vote because you need to vote and you are picking a lesser of evils. Actually show that people want representation for their beliefs, because we have 320 million people, and I think roughly 60% are eligible for vote, maybe a little bit higher than that. So you're maybe talking about like 200 million voters in this country.
Yep.
There is no way in hell that two parties represent 200 million.
They don't.
There's no way.
So educate yourselves.
Yeah,
when
exactly
you,
right.
When you look at the nominees, because it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't just come down to Democrats or Republicans.
right.
And
It doesn't.
you know, if that's the way you want to go for it.
Have
But,
your own opinion. It doesn't. It's not just voting. It's making comments on social media. Do
Right.
not just retweet shit because you think it's the right thing. Look into the background of what actually happened before you go retweet stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is the problem we have in the society right now.
And it's society. We're so divisive as a society, and a lot of that could be because of the two-party system. But that's why. I mean, I personally feel like you need to vote the candidate, not right or left or party,
Yes.
or you need to look at the candidates. You need to understand, because if you were in I'll just deal in hypotheticals. If you were in the middle, maybe you can't associate yourself with one party or the other in a two-party system. Well, that makes things a little more difficult, but that even is more reason to look into what you're saying. You need to vote your beliefs and look what these candidates are.
Yeah, it's like understand what you believe, because the reality is especially this past week and a half, it's incredible how much for someone like myself, I can relate to someone who is polar opposite political spectrum from me.
Yep.
I can say, you know what, politically speaking, I do not agree with you, but this issue,
yes.
I'm right on board with you.
Yep.
This issue, I'm right on board with you.
Yep.
Policing, I'm on board with you. The fact that black lives do matter, it's not an all lives matter situation. I'm on board with you.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where you have to understand what you believe.
Yeah.
Don't let somebody else tell you what you believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Understand what you believe, and then vote based on that.
And I think it's very important that you have friends who you don't agree with politically either, because you can't just there are so many people out there who are set in their ways with what they believe in, and you can't just argue like on racial equality and just be, oh, you're wrong. You have to listen to the other side.
That's right.
So because I have friends that are that I don't agree with politically. They could be on the opposite side. Like I have my stances on racial equality and gun control, and I won't get into a lot of other a lot of other topics there. But I have my stances, and I have friends who don't believe what I believe. But it's important to listen to the other side. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Right. Exactly.
Don't be sheeple, people.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's move on to MLS CBA talk.
Yes.
Let's
do
get
that. We've done enough politics for the day.
So,
30
MLS.
minutes of it.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
MLS and MLSPA have agreed to a new CBA.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and this is something I completely forgot about it, because just about probably 3 months ago, our last podcast, we were talking about how they agreed to a new CBA. Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
what I went back and realized is they agreed to a framework,
Yes.
but they never ratified it.
Nope.
Right.
And so it wasn't done. And then, of course, the coronavirus pandemic hit and kind of threw everything up in the air all over again.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that created a whole new set of issues. But
So-
fortunately, was it Wednesday they did
Yes.
agree to terms? And
So the big thing out of this is it sets us the plan in motion to have our tournament in July. I mean, pretty much now the framework is there. The CBA has been ratified. We can now move forward with plans for the July tournament and what that means.
Right.
There are concessions that both the owners and the players made. It's funny that a lot of the smaller city owners were for the players. They wanted to get back on board, but some of the bigger city owners were totally against it. So it was a really weird situation where you had owners against owners a little bit because of where their teams are at.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think, and it created some new tension. Because we thought, at least I thought, that a lot of people did think that happy, everybody's in agreement. Players made significant strides with the new CBA back in March, and it was. A lot of people looked at it and said, hey, it's a kind of a win-win if there is such a thing. And now the feeling is a little less of that and more like, well, nobody won. Yeah. And the long and the short of it is essentially the players kind of came together. And because MLS is a growing league, but there's a lot of players that aren't maybe in it for the long haul. You got players from South America that maybe look at this as a springboard, which is a good thing for MLS. It's because it's growing MLS because of that. They look at MLS as a desirable league to play in. Right. But you have players from all sorts of different backgrounds, but they kind of came together, even the players that are making millions of dollars. Because you have players that are making, as of this year, $75,000, which is very low for a major sport in the United States. But they kind of came together, and what they agreed, basically, the players agreed to take a annualized, I think, 5% pay cut. It'll be like 7.5% for the rest of the season. But they won't miss a paycheck. They're taking a relatively small pay cut, but they won't. But in return, they're basically giving up a significant amount of money in the long term. I think the number is $100 million concession over the, compared to what they had in place in March. Yeah, they're basically sacrificing $100 million. Over the course of the life of the CBA, basically 5 years. So they're taking some. They don't have to give up because earlier, I don't know if you guys recall, earlier there was talk by the MLS of requiring players to take a 50% pay cut. So if you think about it in your personal situation, it doesn't, whether you're making $25,000 a year or you're making $100,000 a year, if you take a 50% pay cut, that's changing your life significantly. And so it was interesting to see even the bigger salaried players kind of came together and said, okay, we're going to protect even the players on the lower wage scale. And so they agreed to a kind of like I said, a 7.5% for the rest of the season.
Which is good. I mean, I think MLS, cooler heads prevailed in that. I think they realized that if they had lost this season, they had lost everything they had strived for in the past 25 years.
Oh, it would have been a huge setback.
It's a huge setback. And you look at the other end of the spectrum, you look at MLB and their problems right now and working the numbers out, millions of dollars here, millions of dollars here. And both sides have taken a very line in the sand situation and said, hey, here's where we're at. We're not budging at all.
Right. And, I think you kind of alluded to that. Alluded to this is MLB's in a situation they can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been around forever. They gross millions and millions and millions of dollars a year.
Yeah,
they're in a situation where they can say, you know what? No, if they have to take the season off, they could take the season off. It's not really going to harm anyone. I mean, let's take it back.
The minor leaguers.
It probably does. Yes, it definitely harms minor leaguers. Yeah, and it probably harms the brand a little bit.
And who really don't have a good vote. I don't even know if minor leaguers have a vote.
Well, they probably don't. And the other thing about that is, without getting into too much details, you look at things like, first of all, everybody's affected by this pandemic and has been. But you look at, players that are coming out of college or maybe your prospects that are out of high school this year, and now the draft was reduced from X number of rounds to only 5, but significantly less than it was. So now you're going to have a huge number of players that would have been signed to, if you were drafted in the 6th round, I think, in this slot, you're kind of essentially guaranteed a signing bonus in the neighborhood of $300,000. And guess what? Now after round 5, you're an undrafted player, that number is $20,000. So it's a significant cut for a lot of players.
And it's a situation where, again, the league and the players, they're just all greedy.
That's right.
I mean, it's really the way it is, and it's saddening because I gave up on MLB back at the strike. Their last strike, what year was that?
95. Yeah.
I kind of said, you know what, all right, and I gave up watching it for like 4 or 5 seasons.
Yep.
And so they do have the chance that they can harm themselves, but at the same time, they make so much money that I just don't think they care. I don't think they see the reality of what they're doing.
But think about it from an MLS standpoint: is if MLB does not start up, it's MLS. MLS is your summer league. I mean, yes, NBA and NHL are going to their playoffs, but MLS has a chance to take some of those people from MLB. Grab them and come into soccer a little bit.
I'm sure
in there.
Yep. MLS brass is probably like, yeah, you guys go right ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people watched Korean baseball before the pandemic happened? You know, they got a bunch of viewers over there.
I've now, granted, a lot of it for me is having something on in the background as I work from home. But I've had a lot of games on and a lot of Korean baseball. I thought.
The point is that we're in a unique situation here for viewership to go to MLS, just like it went to Korean baseball when it came back on the air.
Yeah,
I
agree.
We have a big opportunity in MLS,
Yeah.
but let's talk about what the tournament's going to look like. So, what we've kind of heard is that the tournament will be kind of a World Cup type of deal, where we'll have
it's all 26 teams, right?
All teams will be in.
Yep.
And we'll have a group stage, and that group stage, whatever your point total is in that group stage, will count towards the regular season. And then after the group stage, we're going to go into a tournament, and like the U.S. Open Cup, pretty much.
Yep.
And whoever wins that tournament then gets a
CCL spot.
CCL. Well, it's a CCL spot. You're right. So just like the U.S. Open Cup.
Yep.
So you actually have something to play for, and the Loons have something to play for to maybe get back to that final, and maybe against Atlanta again, and maybe show them that we're better than Atlanta.
Well, I think we are better than Atlanta right now.
We won't be traveling there though this time.
Yeah.
And of course this is going to take place in Orlando in July. I think it's pretty hot down there, hot and humid usually. It's going to be interesting how this tournament goes.
Well,
because
again, we've talked about the Loons and how they do in hot weather. They are not a good hot weather team at all.
Yeah.
No, they haven't been.
No. So this could be a really bad deal for them, depending on.
And I think it's interesting. Like I think because the CBA was literally agreed to upon this week on Wednesday, I think it was. And as we record this on Saturday, I think things are going to come out really kind of fast and furious here over the next week or two. Because I think originally, as far as the framework, I think the players are now going to report towards the end of June, like the March or June 24th in that ballpark. And then hopefully the tournament would start a few weeks after that, say July 3rd to 9th. Now, that's a little bit different than what they were originally talking about earlier, because I think they were talking about having the players and teams come down in early June.
Yes.
And then so it basically what that does, it's a good thing. It shortens the time away from home from, say, a 10-week window to now maybe like 6 weeks, which is, I guess, significant in their case.
Yeah. So we know kind of the framework of how this is going to happen. We don't know how it's going to work out. I mean, we knew they're all going to be tested regularly,
right?
But we don't know how it's going to work out. If somebody tests positive, do they stop? You can't really stop the team. I think NBA came out and said their testing protocol is they test the person. If they test positive, they are then quarantined, and the rest of the team will keep playing.
There's so many unknowns. Like, I don't know if you saw, actually, just earlier this week, there was a player I think for FC Dallas, an unnamed player that tested positive for the coronavirus, and they immediately shut down any kind of training, whether it's individual or a team. Because that's another thing, team training just this week, they're going to allow teams to
come back,
restart, team-wide training. And there's a whole, we could spend an hour going down the laundry list of conditions. They basically have to submit a plan to the league and how you're going to do it and but that's going to involve testing and this and that. So there's a lot of unknowns still, but it's moving.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of pods that the teams get set up into.
Yeah.
In terms of, is it going to be kind of by your conference? Is it not going to be by your conference? Is it going to be, and plus those points are going towards regular season.
I think we'll be in the same group as Seattle, Atlanta, and LAFC.
Well, no, I mean,
sure, that'll be a great group.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just how I feel like it's going to be. Because I don't have a lot of faith in MLS brass. I just have a feeling that it's going to be set up in a way that somebody's just going to get shit on.
Well, we talked.
They're going to be a group of death.
We talked about it last time, where you're going to have like Seattle's going to be in one.
Yes.
In one group because they won MLS Cup last year, and then you're going to have, we talked about it, but the other teams based on merits. Supporter Shield winners, and then go down from there. So,
well, didn't we talk about last time that the matches would be based on who Minnesota missed out in the beginning of their season, the games they missed since the coronavirus hit.
Well, I think that's what we assumed.
Yeah, I don't think
somehow they would do that.
I don't know how that can happen though.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like
I don't think that
setup. I
don't think that'll
because it's so
the
scheduling is so random that sometimes you play a team 1 week and then you play the team like 3 weeks later. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if it was a balanced schedule like in Europe where you have half, you play half and then half. That I think you could do that, but I don't know how.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. I still am not a fan of it. I think it's dumb. I think they should just play the rest of the season, get it over with. But
because the latest, and when we mentioned this last time too, but again, there hasn't been any change in this. The latest talk is that these group stage games will count towards MLS regular season standings, and so then presumably when the schedule restarts into a conference heavy schedule, if not conference only schedule. Maybe 12 to 18 games. I think that's still the talk, And
I think that'll be interesting because we've already, the 2 games we've played have been conference.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that's, honestly, I have to admit, I haven't paid attention to what everybody else did. But I don't know if that's what all other teams had been only conference.
I think for the most part, I could pull up the table, but I think for the most part that was the case. And I don't know if that was by design or not. I can't say it was by design, but
the few matches I'm thinking of that did happen were mostly interconference.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, Inter Miami played DC United, although Inter Miami did play LAFC as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it'll be interesting to see not only through the tournament, but when we come out of the tournament, how they're going to get teams back to their home stadiums and how that's going to work out because that's their plan.
Well, for here in Minnesota, we're talking now. We sit here June 5th. It's going to be at least 2 months before that happens. So if let's say the United returned home to play games this week, we already know we could only have a maximum of 25% capacity at Allianz Field.
Well, not even that.
It's capped at 250.
250.
Oh, is it? Okay, so that's
25%.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. So I didn't have the everything.
So
right.
we don't even know if when they come back to their home fields, if they'll be able to play in front of fans at all. I know in Dallas they can.
I would assume, based on the fact that Tim has a dial.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 months, it's going to be dialed to some point it's outdoor.
Open
so
air.
It'll be like,
50%,
40% capacity, max 10,000 with screening at the door. It's going to be some crazy thing.
Actually, that's interesting. I was trying to think best case scenario when I said, and I was wrong. I said 25%. Thanks for correcting me, but it's not out of the possibility, certainly, that if I go to the other side, that there will be no fans in the stadium. Period.
Yeah, and
for the rest of the season, that's a possibility.
The reality is what I would do, and I think the big thing about the way the summer has played out is I was actually talking to my dad about soccer, and he hates soccer this morning. I was talking to him. And he asked me about this, and I was like, well, honestly, I think the best thing that they could possibly do is just don't put fans in the stands.
Yep.
Put all, season ticket holders, all their money goes to next season.
That's right.
Exactly.
And just say screw the season.
Yep.
As far as ticket sales.
That's right.
Yeah.
And move on from there. And I think that would be the most logistically sound thing because I think there are going to be too many states that are going to be different.
Yeah.
I think Illinois is going to be extremely cautious. New York's going to be very cautious. Minnesota is probably going down the cautious line.
But southern states are going to be completely like Texas.
Yeah.
They're saying 25% in stadiums right now.
And Florida is going to be very much whatever
open.
the hell you want
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Georgia's kind of going towards that direction.
It's a tough one too. I mean, I obviously all of us are hoping for the best, and we hope for fans in the stands, of course. I mean, because that would be a
Right.
sign that things are improving and the situation is much better. But it's a tough situation because Don Garber came out and said, I think this week as well, that MLS is potentially looking at $100 billion. Was it billion or million? That sounds like a lot.
I think it was million.
Million, 100
yeah.
million again.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say 100 billion. $1 million.
That's a lot of money.
But it is. The point is, and the reason, whatever that number that I threw out there, whatever that number is, it's a lot of money. Yeah, like you said, Connor. But and the main problem is with MLS, a lot of their team's revenue are ticket sales and game of day of game events and vendors
and everything like that. Yep.
So yeah, they're losing a lot of money by not having those fans in the stands.
They are, but on the flip side, again, like we talked about, there are so many different variables in different states. And then in terms of tickets, let's say you had a ticket already for a game, that's upcoming. How do you say who can go and who can't go?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? How do you make that?
It would maybe you would just throwing out ideas. Would it have to be a lottery?
I think what
season ticket holders.
I think what you almost have to do is you have to refund the tickets.
Yep.
And then put out new tickets and say, okay, here's 50%. We're giving everybody is gone.
Yeah.
Now here's 50%. You get to choose your seat at 50%. And who knows what these stadiums will do to make 50%? Are you going to do every other seat? Are you going to?
And then families stay together?
Yeah. Again,
it's very complicated.
Are you going to take temperatures at the gates? Are you going to do that? Because some places are doing that. So
that involves paying more staff to
exactly
staff the
right.
game.
Yeah.
And it involves buying the thermometers to do it. And, I just think it makes so much more sense to just say, screw it all and do empty stadiums the rest of the season.
That's right.
Yeah. You can watch them on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same. I love going to United games, but it's... I mean, I like watching soccer on TV.
And they can put sex dolls in the stands.
Right.
And just to correct myself, I was wrong. It wasn't 100 million. It wasn't 100 billion. Garber claims that they could lose $1 billion revenue, and I'm assuming that's already happened since March, and going forward it could happen.
Yeah.
So obviously that's got to be specifically revenue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Revenue, exactly. Yes.
MLS has lost. I think it's more than that. They're in the couple billion
as a
dollars.
league.
Yeah.
And I would say one thing that makes me want to see fans in the stands is now the last couple nights. Well, not last night, but Thursday and Wednesday, I think it was. I always watch Channel 45 because the reruns are fantastic. And so I watched the 9 o'clock news. And both, I think it was Wednesday and Thursday night, they had like a Minnesota United segment on the sports.
Oh.
Because there's nothing else to talk about.
Oh, nice.
And Minnesota, the Loons are at least, practicing, and MLS is making plans, and they're actually talking about what's going on. And I was like, this is kind of cool.
It is great, yeah. And you're not like, let's say we stay in the scenario that we're talking about. Like, say Major League Baseball does not come back this summer, and MLS does, and everything goes right. You may not get new. I mean, well, you hope you get new fans, but you are going to get people that hadn't watched MLS and the Loons to start watching the Loons a little bit more closely. And any exposure is good exposure. That's how you grow the league, and you're going to get maybe new fans as a result.
If Tom was still around, he'd probably be watching MLS, even though he hated soccer.
But
because it was sports to watch on TV.
Sports fan,
exactly right.
So I just saw David brought out a growler here from Blue Wolf. What is this one right here?
Yeah, so this is the Juicy Lucy as a Goosey.
Yeah, it's like ghosts, isn't it?
Hazy IPA.
Oh yeah, I thought
it was a hazy IPA.
I thought because you had mentioned you stopped by Blue Wolf yesterday. I thought that might be gone by the time we recorded.
Yeah, I thought we heard that it was going to be gone.
I said I wasn't going to guarantee. I did not get around to drinking any beer last night, so
no whiskey.
It was
whiskey.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go. So we got Blue Wolf all over the place in this.
Let me verify that. I'm pretty sure that's
okay. While you are verifying that, I will say, since I finished the
yes, it's a hazy.
The rye ale from Blue Wolf, I have since opened a beer from Uda Pils. It's their Skolch Kolsch style. And I've had this, for previously it used to be called copacetic. In fact, the last time I had it, it might have been called copacetic.
Yep.
It's another really easy drinking kind of. It's got a light feel to it, a light taste. It's
I had a Castle Danger. I think it's called Summer Crush, which is there. I think it's just an ale type of thing, it's Castle Danger. It's fantastic beer.
Yeah.
So, this is a hazy IPA,
Okay.
Yeah.
and it's copious. This is how the description goes: copious amounts of Citra and Cascade. And there's a lot of Citra in this.
Yep.
I mean, this is
Very cool.
6.1%. You could probably down this pretty well.
Nice.
There you go. So
And of course, this is available for anyone that wants it.
yeah, well,
Oh, sweet.
take a pull off it.
Yeah, once I'm done with my no coast, I'll.
So
take it
we'll
up.
so MLS is coming back. I mean, we're gonna have
Yay.
soccer here. Yay is right.
Yeah.
It's a joyous occasion.
Yeah, you guys are actually going to be able to listen to us bitch about soccer.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
maybe
We'll-
as soon as maybe even less than a month from now, we'll have our first.
Yeah,
games.
we'll be able to go there. We'll go to a brewery and talk about soccer for a change.
Even
Holy
if
shit.
I'm struggling with the ESPN announcer, but he basically, I think he kind of shares your beliefs, David. He called it basically a glorified preseason, because the problem is you're going to be in Orlando.
Yeah.
Yes, teams have been training individually, and by then they'll be training together. But it's you got to go ramp up into game shape, and now you're playing
Yep.
in these. Even if they matter, even if they count points in the standing, it's going to be tough. And we already know that you would assume at the very least you'll have up to 5 substitutions, with FIFA rules or international soccer rules. But could they even go more than 5, especially as you're getting ramped up into game shape?
Could.
Maybe MLS will say, hey, you can go even more.
Yeah, I mean, considering the climate that they're going to be in, I mean, can you imagine not being game fit and then having to play,
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
think-
I don't know, every 3 days in Orlando?
Yeah.
And because it has to be
90-degree
condensed.
weather every day.
Humidity, it's got to be condensed too. So I think it was on Taylor Twellman's banter program that I saw yesterday, or it didn't air yesterday, but I watched it yesterday. They brought up the fact, well, hey, I think it was actually a head coach. His name is losing me right now, but he brought up the fact, well, maybe it has to be more because of those issues and the climate. But if you could maybe have like a wholesale, or not necessarily, but have the option to do like a wholesale change at halftime, say, and you'd still maybe only have a limited number of windows to make substitutions. But if you could say sub off 6 people at halftime,
well, you're going to have to expand your rosters a bit, your game day rosters a bit too. I mean, that's what's going to have to happen. MLB was talking about that, expanding their game day rosters and having a taxi squad of 20 more players being available to them to come up and down depending on what they needed. I mean, MLS can't go that route because their rosters are pretty much set. They don't have a minor league and they don't have, whatever.
but
Right.
maybe
So
that reserve roster.
You'll have to get. I think that reserve roster will be available on game day if you're going to play, in Orlando as kind of a, preseason type of deal in the heat.
Yeah.
I still don't know. Do you guys know what their soccer areas look like in Orlando?
No,
Have you guys
I've
seen
never seen
pictures
I've
of
never
it?
seen it.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen pictures. I know NBA.
Yeah,
and see, the other thing too is NBA is doing their thing in Orlando too, at Disney World.
It's interesting. I've spent time in Orlando. Not the most recent was for 3 or 4 years ago when I went down to catch the Citrus Bowl. But and I spent some times around the complex, around what used to be called downtown Disney. I'm not sure what it is now, but and I didn't even know. Like I knew that they had these complexes where they can do a lot of different things, but I had not seen. But they must have field after field.
They do. I think they have field after field, but I knew about the NBA because the NBA and ESPN had done some things at Orlando for different events. Not NBA events, but like celebrity type of stuff and whatever. So I knew the NBA had courts there, or they have courts there. I have not seen a soccer thing from there.
And it's
though.
interesting. It was just last year, wasn't the All-Star game was down there? Wasn't it just last year? Or am I mistaken?
Yeah, it wasn't Orlando, but it wasn't at Disney World.
I do not
Well,
remember.
it would have
It
been
would have been
in
at-
that area.
In that area, yeah.
But they didn't really show my point is whether it was last year or the year before. They didn't really showcase if they have soccer specific, an area. They didn't really showcase that.
It'd be funny if all the soccer fields were like the kids soccer fields where there's no barriers.
Well,
Oh,
and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
just
well,
It's like Blaine, going up to Blaine.
and you know what? In all seriousness, it could be that way because
we gotta stop playing the ball on the field from another field. Sorry,
it could. You know what? It probably is that way. And
you're gonna get moms on the sidelines in their chairs.
well, they've already said that there won't be fans
Well,
at these tournament games.
What about their moms and dads?
Yeah, you can't
They
turn
come,
down the
family.
parents, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. They
Will
might
they
have
have orange slices at halftime? Will they get
Right.
Will they get Shasta after the game?
Pizza, too.
Pizza,
right?
yeah. Will they go out for a little pizza? Maybe a little
Yeah.
Dairy Queen after the game? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm joking. It's not going to happen that way, but it'd be funny if it did.
Okay, so I've just read something on Wikipedia here that has shown a loose schedule of what the tournament is going to look like.
On
it looks
Wikipedia?
Like. On
Who the
Wikipedia.
hell posted that?
I have no idea, but it says coronavirus emergency schedule. The new schedule has been made for the season. June 24th, arrival and testing for all 26 teams in
that
Orlando.
sounds about what I've heard. Yeah.
Yep. June 25th through 28th. June 25th through July 8th.
Okay.
Team training period. Tournament start date not confirmed yet, though it should start after the training period. July 23rd is when the group stage ends.
Okay.
10 teams eliminated and 16 remain in Orlando. July 24th through 28th is the round of 16. July 29th through August 1st is quarterfinals. August 2nd through 5th is the semifinals. And then sometime between August 6th and 9th is the championship of that tournament.
So then they would be, I would guess that after the tournament's over, they'd be back up mid-August. They'd be back to their home stadiums and doing
I would assume
regular
so.
season.
Right.
Well,
Just going
and
right
that
at
just,
it.
yeah, that goes to show you that. I mean, even if you were one of the 10 teams that was eliminated, yeah, you might fit in that 6-week window away from home. But if you make it to the final, then there you go. Now you're back to that 9
Yeah, it'll
to
be
10
like a
week
week and you're
window.
back on it.
Yep. It will. Again, this is going to be something that's never happened before because of coronavirus. We're in a new world right now, guys. So it'll be interesting. But at least in July, we'll get to talk about soccer again.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's a little bit of you kind of got to hold your breath and see how this goes with the testing and training and coronavirus. But I mean, I think at least we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this is going to shake out. But at least as we sit here now, I think we should be allowed to be a little bit optimistic.
Yeah,
I think
because we're
absolutely.
trending in the right direction.
And I think we'll have more details on our next podcast. I mean, they should at that point come out with what we're doing for testing, what it's going to be. Hopefully, the pods or the group stages will be kind of out there. They'll do a whole, and I'm sure MLS will do a whole thing on TV about the
they'll
group
blow
stage
it up,
stuff.
yeah.
They'll blow it up.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you? I'll be watching.
Well, yeah, John Champion kind of brought up that point on Banter again. The third time I brought it up now, but he really made the case. He was talking about the fact that by the time this tournament starts, obviously you've got the Bundesliga, but the English Premier League is going to be starting up. La Liga, Serie A.
Yep.
They will have all started if everything goes to plan before MLS does. And so, and he John Champion brought up the point that, like, say, even the English Premier League, which has been, kind of conservative in the past, is going to open up more things for, like, say, you see it in the NFL, interviews from coaches that as they're walking off the pitch at halftime, and maybe, this would be substantial, like locker room access and interviews and stuff like that. So they're really going to put, he called it bells and whistles on their broadcast to kind of make it enhanced. And so he just brought up the point that when this tournament does kick off, I think it's going to be ESPN, but if it's not, if FS1, whoever it is, they really need to put their all into it. They need to put some money and some production into the tournament.
I don't know how.
Regardless of whether you take it seriously or not, they need to put some money into this.
There's another interesting aspect to it is I don't know how the regional sports channels, how their contracts work out. I know MLB, because I've seen a lot of it, is they have a certain number of dates, and NBA, too, has a certain number of dates they have to hit in order for their contract to be good. So they're working with NBA, especially right now, because there's teams that are not playing in this tournament. Timberwolves are one of them. In the getting into the NBA playoffs or whatever the hell they're doing. So the regional TV stations have to figure out how they're going to work out that contract. MLS, I think, is in the same boat. I mean, the Loons have a contract with Fox Sports North. So I don't know how this would work out. If ESPN would then show all the games and then pay some percentage to the regional sports networks, or they would show it on ESPN and the regional sports networks at the same time.
Sure. Right.
Because those regional sports networks are chomping at the bit to get live things on. They don't want to lose that to national sports networks, so we'll see how that plays out too.
Yeah, that's true.
And speaking of broadcasts, like, what did you think? I think it was now here we are, was it the third week of Bundesliga already? But what did you think of and I guess I know, but I didn't realize it in the past, but so Bundesliga basically put out this, I guess you'd call it, like how they broadcast the games. They put it out to the world, say we're watching it on FS1 or FS2, but they basically put out that broadcast with that simulated crowd noise.
Which sounds better.
It sounds significantly better, and like the credit to the people that are in charge of kind of the balancing levels, the editing and the nuances of like when, it's not perfect, but how they adjust the volumes to the, when something happens, a shot on goal or a corner kick. And it's just, I really was impressed because I think the first week they did not have that, and it was eerie. And but going back and the second week and with that simulated crowd noise, it sounded significantly better. So it'll be interesting to see how MLS goes with that.
It's funny you bring that up, Dave, because I just saw an article on The Ringer about NFL coming back in September with probably no fans, and how they're talking to the team at Madden, the video game team, on how to simulate crowd noise.
Really? Oh, wow.
And I would not at all be surprised if MLS talks to the people who do FIFA, if MLB talks to people who do MLB The Show, how they simulate crowd noise for those occasions. Because I play a lot of sports games on my PS4, and they do a great job of simulating like a big base hit or whatever it is, and hearing the crowd noise, So they're going to the people who know how to do it the best.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all. Bundesliga kind of tapped into FIFA and said, hey, guys, how do we do this? And like, here's what you do, and here's how you play it up.
Taking it a step further, and I think I heard this from MLB, and it was pure speculation at the time, but I mean, could you take it a step further? I don't know if you'd consider it, say, augmented reality, but I heard things from MLB that would say not only would you have a simulated crowd noise on the broadcast, it wouldn't be in the stadium, but on the broadcast you'd have that simulated crowd noise. Could you have, now really with soccer, you're kind of, the shot's usually pretty tight on the field and the players.
Yeah.
But like if you went around the stands, if you took a wide shot, could you have simulated crowds?
They are
like visually speaking.
I did hear them talking about that, which would be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
How would you? The problem you run into, of course, with that is how would you, if you're going to have live people in simulated worlds, how would you stop people from doing stupid shit?
No. What I would think it would be all computer
generated
CGI.
Okay.
It would be fake people. It wouldn't be real people.
Fake people.
But,
okay, gotcha. So that's that, guys. I mean, we're moving ahead here in MLS. Of course, Dave mentioned La Liga, Premier League, and Serie A are going to start back up here shortly. We'll be waiting with MLS. Is there anything soccer related you guys want to talk about? Anything more?
I got some history if you guys want.
Oh, that's right. Connor's got his history.
Of course, that's why I'm wearing my Minnesota Strikers.
I was going to shout you out on that. It's the year that Dave is wearing a Strikers shirt, and it's the year they were in the NASL, 1984, which is awesome. One of my favorite soccer commentators played for the Strikers, actually. Ray Hudson. He's one of my he just the words he uses when he's commenting on La Liga games. Like if you see him comment during an El Clasico, man, I don't know how these words come to his mind, but they just flow out of him. Yeah.
Do we have an intro for Connor yet?
No.
Okay, David, I'm going to need you to get a little step up on that.
and
here's music. Yeah,
I can do it.
Trigger music right now.
And now it's time for Connor Ennis and his look back in Minnesota soccer history.
June 1st, 2011, Minnesota Stars draw at the Puerto Rico Islanders, 1-1. And in 2013, on June 1st, Minnesota United lose at the San Antonio Scorpions, 2-0.
Okay, now let's talk about the Scorpions a bit. That makes sense.
That's a great
That
name.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That's one of my. I've said it many times.
Yeah,
One of my
makes
favorite
sense.
things about this segment is the team names.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one new one, I think, in this one that
Really?
nobody's heard of yet.
All right.
And I'll get to that in a couple days here. June 2nd, 2000. It was a year ago on June 2nd. Minnesota United lost to the Philadelphia Union.
What the
3-2. That's
What the
the
fuck
the
was that
only
from?
game they lost at Allianz Field last year, by the way, in the regular
What the
season.
hell?
And that was a pretty cool game. That
It
was, an
was a cool
exciting
game.
That was a
I
lot
if I
of
was there.
That was the one where Minnesota had 29 shots on goal.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did we lose?
Were we
29 shots on goal.
Was that? I'm trying to think if that was the game that David. Were you and I up in the top of the?
No,
that wasn't
no.
that game.
We did not witness a loss.
Oh, we didn't. That's right. We didn't. Okay, sorry.
In fact,
Oh,
in
lucky you guys.
and I know that in June, I didn't get to watch that game. That I was in Australia.
Oh, that's right. That's when you were on.
Are you sure
You were in
Oh,
Australia.
Yeah,
Oh.
for
I
that
might have been with
game.
you
Yeah,
that
I just
game.
had to double check. But I was working. I was working in Australia.
It might have been Johnny too.
Yeah.
I just tried that was it a hazy IPA in
Yeah.
the growler? It's good. I like it. June 3rd. That's our only June 2nd stat. June 3rd, 1978. The Minnesota Kicks win against the Seattle Sounders 3-2.
It's nice to see the Sounders are still around.
Yeah.
You know?
I think they went from NASL to maybe they went into the MISL.
I do.
For a while.
I will say this as a history type of buff guy.
Yeah.
I love when teams keep their names throughout their history and don't change it up, as much.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like Seattle Sounders, Portland Timbers were around
Timbers,
back then. Whitecaps have been around forever. Earthquakes have been around
Earthquakes.
forever.
Well, David's going through all of our iterations: Kicks, Strikers, Stars, Thunder, United now.
United, yeah.
It's been like, hello.
Balloons.
We should have been the North Stars.
Is that a copyright thing or? No?
See, that's I won't get into the whole NHL thing. I still think it's kind of a shitty thing that when they moved the North Stars down to Dallas, they became the Stars and didn't let us keep the North Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, did they do that like sport wide? Because obviously you see, I don't know that you can copyright the North Stars.
Well,
can you copyright Minnesota North Stars?
I think you can copyright the team name because I believe when the Browns left, remember the Browns left became the Ravens?
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
They left the
Oh,
Browns
true.
name there.
That's true.
And that's true for the Earthquakes. The first time they were in the MLS, they moved down to Houston and became the Dynamo.
And they left the
then
Earthquakes
they left the Earthquakes behind, and now the Earthquakes are a team again.
Fucking Norm Green. Jackass.
Yeah, one of the most hated names in Minnesota
Fucking
history.
hate that guy.
1979, June 3rd. Minnesota Kicks win against the Tulsa Roughnecks, 3-2. Formerly Team Hawaii.
Dave,
All right,
remember
yes,
that?
yeah, we brought
Dave,
that up.
Yep.
we were only like a month and a half from being born at that
Yes,
point.
yes, we were. Yeah, just a month later.
June 3rd, 1981, Minnesota Kicks lose at the Portland Timbers, 1-0. Then we move on to 1984. The Strikers lose at the Toronto Blizzard.
Oh, Toronto.
That, by the way, is my only Strikers stat this week because every other year the Strikers were here. They were in the Indoor Soccer League, which happened from fall to spring.
That's right.
No indoor soccer in the summer.
That's right.
Then we fast forward to June 3rd, 2012, where the Minnesota Stars draw at the San Antonio Scorpions, 0-0. Then we move to MLS era. Minnesota United lose at Sporting Kansas City, 3-0. And then exactly a year later, Minnesota United lose at Sporting Kansas City 4-1.
Yikes. Yeah, they had their early days.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Kansas City had not treated them well.
I know.
Yeah.
Even the early days of this podcast, and they were terrible.
Yeah. Although I do remember that we lost that game, but the one goal we scored was Tyrone Mears belcher from like 25
Sure.
yards out. That was
Mears.
amazing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Some of those players on those old teams, it's like, oh God. Why?
Moving on to June 4th, 1977, Minnesota Kicks win against the San Jose Earthquakes, 1-0.
Yeah.
Oh, and here comes the new one.
All right.
June 4th, 1980, the Kicks lose at the California Surf 1-0.
See, at least it works.
Well, it makes sense,
It
but
does
you
make
still
sense, but
tried.
there
They
are many
tried.
different
You
names.
still kind of
They
say,
tried.
Is
Where
it
was
too
California?
too
They
obvious?
tried.
California, I don't know where they were from. It's better than the California Jaguars. That's what I know.
If they played in Sacramento and they call themselves the Surf, I'm gonna be pissed off. There is no surf in Sacramento. Fuckers.
This isn't much better, actually.
Where'd they play?
Anaheim.
No, there's no surf in Anaheim. Son.
Well, you're a half hour from the
Doesn't
beach.
matter.
There's no beach in Anaheim.
Well,
doesn't matter.
it's a short drive.
They have like
down
a
there.
pond.
Oh,
there
wait,
that's
wait,
surf.
just a second. Sorry. Let me retract that. They played at Anaheim and Long Beach Arena.
Okay.
Oh,
all
okay,
right.
okay.
All right,
So they had-
okay, fine. I retract my statement. Jesus.
Well, wait, what year was that?
1980.
Okay. So they would have been at Long Beach that year.
Okay.
All right.
So that
all
makes
right,
sense,
All
at
right.
least.
All
All
right.
right.
All right.
Moving forward to, we're moving forward 30 years here. June 4th, 2010. Minnesota Stars draw the Rochester Rhinos.
Ooh, the Rhinos.
0-0.
Again, Rochester. Do we have rhinos in Rochester?
There are
New
no
York?
rhinos in
No.
Rochester.
Maybe they have a zoo.
Okay, they have a zoo. Come on, man. Come on.
A year later, Minnesota Stars win at the Atlanta Silverbacks, which, by the way, I love saying we beat the Atlanta Silverbacks so much because it makes me think Atlanta United. We have beat some Atlanta team sometime.
Yeah,
You know.
well.
Well, we have beaten Atlanta.
We did beat
have.
Atlanta in our first season.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That was
We
that
beat
was
them
a
in
hard
Atlanta.
loss for them, actually. That was their first loss, I thought.
At the home state, yeah. At were they playing at Mercedes-Benz
That was
at
at
the time?
Mercedes, yeah.
2016. Here's another new one I don't think I've done yet. Minnesota United lose at Rayo OKC.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
1-0.
That's right, Real, yeah.
They were owned
have,
by a Spanish team.
Didn't they have issues, though? Like,
Yeah.
they...
So the team in Spain, I think, ended up dissolving,
Yep.
and they actually tried to take the pitch.
That's right, yeah.
Like, they tore up the pitch
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
because of the debt, I think.
I think so.
Something like that.
It was
really
a weird situation with
Huh.
them. Yeah.
That was a rough... They were
Yeah.
like... it would have been La Liga 2, I think.
I know there was a Rayo team over there. I don't remember who it was, but it was Rayo something. I don't know what it was.
I think it's the same team.
OKC.
Yeah.
It couldn't be OKC. It was. I know there was a team that began with Rayo over there. I don't know if it was. I don't know what the actual name
I
was.
faintly remember there was problems with their stadium, too. It was a shitty stadium to begin with. And they had some major issues. It was just a bad situation there.
Literally, the third Google search is Rayo OKC Turf.
Moving on to June 5th, 1976, the Kicks' inaugural season. Then the Kicks win against the Chicago Sting, 4-2. I love it when we beat Chicago teams.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can beat them at Soldier Field.
Yep. If we play them.
So Rayo OKC was owned by Rayo Vallecano.
Vallecano,
in
that's the
Segunda
one.
division, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry.
June 6th, which is today, 1979, Minnesota Kicks win against the San Jose Earthquakes 4-1. 1981, Minnesota Kicks win against the Washington Diplomats 4-3.
Hey, now that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
But it's no more cliche than... Or it's no less cliche than California Surf.
True.
You're right, but it makes sense.
Didn't Washington have was it a baseball team called the Washington Senators?
They
Yeah.
did, and they became the Minnesota Twins.
Yes.
They
And
did. That's right.
I would like to point out that there's no one in Washington that's a diplomat.
Well, at
They're all
that time
politicians.
they were.
Maybe
well, it could be
fuckwad.
politicians. Yeah.
That might be a better word.
Well, now they're the Nationals, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
And and it goes back to even the NBA. Remember the NBA before the Wizards? It was the Bullets.
That's right.
And then they said, "Yeah,
It
we
was.
need to not be the Bullets anymore because of all the armed shit going on."
Well, I mean,
Is
they had-
that why they changed
Oh,
it?
yeah,
yes.
so
Oh,
DC
really?
during that time, and maybe still do that. I mean, they had a horrific problem with
Yeah,
crime back
crime,
then.
yeah.
I don't know if
They've
still
always
do.
been one of the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's why they changed their name.
And the last stat of the day, June 6, 2015, Minnesota United drew at the Carolina Railhawks 1-1.
Did we figure out what a railhawk is?
I think
a hawk.
Dave
we
tried searching it.
Yes, I did.
It's,
It's a hawk that's just on a rail.
Okay.
It wasn't. It
That's
wasn't.
what it is. It's a skateboarding hawk.
I have no idea.
It wasn't.
It's Tony Hawk. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Tony Hawk.
We'll save the
Get it up.
listeners the details. It was a bird. Let's just.
It was a bird.
We should probably apologize a little bit. It's so quiet right now.
It is
might be
quiet.
a
It
little
is
awkward.
quiet,
yeah.
yeah. Because there have been, I don't know if all the listeners have heard, but there have been lawnmowers and dump trucks.
Kids.
And,
Cement mixers.
All kinds
and
of
That's a
stuff.
good point. It's now all of a sudden very, very quiet.
yeah.
Like, too quiet.
Oh.
And if you're listening to this as you fall asleep, the lawnmower kind of helps that drone.
That's
helps
true.
The
you
white
get-
noise.
white noise for you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's your Minnesota history for the day,
Oh, good.
guys.
All right.
And I apologize. I have free time that I should be using to, instead of playing with my kids, to find an intro for you.
Instead of playing with your kids? Wow.
Whoa. Yeah, my
Just
intro is
throw that
more
out there.
important than your kids, Dave.
Yeah, don't say things like
Oh,
that. You want it?
I'll give it a taste.
There you go. All right, boys. Now after that, the history lesson, do you guys want to get into some funny stuff?
Let's do it.
Might as well, right?
I mean, I've got two stories today. Both are really good, actually. Do we want to talk about England during the coronavirus lockdown, their new rules?
let's go with Spain.
Or do
Yeah.
we want to talk about the Spanish
Let's do
porn
Spain
star?
first.
Let's do the Spanish porn star.
Okay, Spanish porn star first. Okay, let's see here. Let's see.
Oh, was
'cause
she
this
the
is-
one that was walking behind the camera of the
No,
reporter?
This is a guy.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Okay, this is a dude. We have Spanish porn star, 46, is investigated for manslaughter after fashion photographer died at his home from inhaling psychedelic toad vapor.
Psychedelic
Toad
what?
vapor?
Wow.
Toad vapor.
Toad vapor?
Toad vapor, yes.
wow.
This guy's name is Nacho Vidal. That's his name. That's the best part of the story right
That's
there.
a porn star.
Nacho
name
Vidal.
there.
Hey, it's me, Nacho. Hey, what's up?
He's got to have a muscle.
I'm still thinking about the toad vapor, but
We'll get
yeah,
into that.
Yeah.
A Spanish porn star is being investigated for manslaughter after a man died from inhaling toad venom vapor in his house. Nacho Vidal, 46, was named as a suspect after fashion photographer Jose Luis Abad died from inhaling fumes from a Colorado River toad near Valencia in July of 2019. Now, he just been arrested now, but this happened back in July of last year.
Yeah.
Vidal, who has starred in more than 600 adult films, was arrested on Thursday after Mr. Abad died at his home in the Valencian town of Ingura. Mr. Abad is believed to have been engaging in a mystic ritual when he inhaled vapor from the psychedelic toad. And it goes on to say, at the conclusion of an 18-month investigation, we have been able to establish that the offense of involuntary manslaughter and public health offense had occurred allegedly committed by those who organized and presided over the ritual. The toad, a rare species native to the Sonoran Desert from northern Mexico to California and Arizona, secretes venom containing a very powerful natural psychedelic substance known as 5-MeO-DMT. Vidal's lawyer denied the porn star had acted as a shaman in the ritual. Nacho is very upset by the death of this person, but he considers himself to be innocent. With all due respect to the dead man and his family, Nacho maintains that the consumption of the venom was completely voluntary. Nacho Vidal, whose real name is Ignacio Jorda Gonzalez, posted a YouTube vid in 2016 describing the healing effects of using the toad's venom. So, this guy, who is a Spanish porn star, pretty much has a little ritual thing going on with the healing effects of this toad, and some guy died from it.
Huh. Kind of brings
That's
me
one
back
of
to
those-
that
that's one of
South
those-
Park episode where Kenny starts inhaling
The cat butt.
cat urine.
The cat urine. Yeah, the cat urine stuff. Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
that.
It's one of those stories that, some of the stuff that we talk about here at the end of our podcast kind of sounds like you made it up, Tony. But this one is one of those where you can't make that up. Like,
No.
you
I-
literally-
I'd
Who
like to
thinks of
point out
toad vapor?
that he's married with kids.
Who? The Vidal guy?
Yeah.
Nacho? Yeah.
How does a child, and they're older.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, he's 46, so.
they're like teens.
Oh yeah, they are.
How do you process that?
Well,
My father is or was.
I think he still kind of is.
I mean, the is would be insanely difficult. Is a porn star. My father is a porn star, but the was would probably be a little bit easier.
But maybe he was, and then of course he got older and he decided, well, I'm going to get out of it.
Decided to be a shaman.
And he's going to be a shaman and have this toad venom and give it to people for medicinal purposes.
Yeah, and so when they say Colorado River, does that mean like there's a river in Spain with that name, or is there?
Well, I think does the Colorado River go down, comes into Arizona? I don't know. Dave, you've been out there numerous times. The Colorado River.
I lived miles from the Colorado.
And of course you did.
Yeah,
too. Does it go down into Mexico then?
Yeah. I mean, I have not been down there, but basically, it starts up. You're talking
Starts
up
in
the
mountains.
Rockies.
Yeah, Rockies.
Yeah.
Comes down, basically hits Grand Canyon, comes down Nevada, basically Arizona.
Yeah.
And that's as far as I've been on it. But yes, I would assume
It goes into Mexico.
eventually into I'm assuming the Baja.
So there are psychedelic toads in the United States.
It's funny. If you Google Colorado River, the very first news story is this.
Oh yeah,
Really?
of course. Well,
I should say I've been tubing on the Colorado River before.
did you
Yes.
lick a toad?
I did not lick a toad.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
I have
It's
to say,
a river. There's no toad vapor on the river.
I lived in Colorado for 3 years. And I never knew there was a toad that had venom that was apparently used as.
Did you have a Spanish porn star come to your house and say, "Hey, can I get toads
No.
out of your yard?
I did not.
My name is Nacho."
That's fine. I've Colorado River, just like I have to shout out Colorado River. Great. I mean, I've done some wonderful tubing in Laughlin, Nevada on the Colorado River, and I've also spent a 4th of July camping in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, when
the
the
Havasu.
overnight temperature did not drop below 100.
Oh,
And
my
so
God.
it
Oh,
was
man.
insane.
Havasu.
Really? Even in Arizona?
It did not. It was. I mean, the daytime high. It was. I don't know if they set records that particular day, but the daytime highs were pushing 120.
You want to talk about?
Really?
You want to talk about one of the most debauched lakes in the United States? Lake Havasu has got to be one of those most debauched lakes.
Are you talking debauchery? Because there was
yeah.
plenty of that.
Oh
on
yeah.
the 4th,
I mean,
4th of July.
I'm telling you, man.
Really?
I've seen some videos from Lake Havasu, and they are.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, it was. You know who I'm talking about. I was out there. We were just.
Yeah, I know
we
you're
wanted
I
to
know
check
you-
out
I
the
know who
4th
you're
of July
talking about,
scene.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
interesting, but
That's crazy. I remember I went to the Grand Canyon when I was 18, and it was like 110 during the day, but that night it got down to like 40.
Yeah, the desert's crazy.
Yeah.
But so Nacho is going to jail for his manslaughter charges for the toad thing.
I mean,
I'm guessing, you know what, my thing is, if you're a shaman and it's a thing and the guy probably knows the risks, how could he be charged with, well, I guess it goes back to what we talk about with opioids and around here. You can be charged if you give an opioid to a person and they take it
true.
and die, you can be charged with manslaughter here.
so I mean, according to Wikipedia, take that for what it's worth. The Colorado River toad is known as the Sonoran Desert toad,
Yeah.
and it contains 5-MeO-DMT,
Yep, that was in the story.
which is the psychedelic tryptamine.
Oh.
It's actually used as an entheogenic.
What does that mean?
Entheogen? I don't know what this is. Oh, it's a religious drug
There you go.
Oh.
See?
in South America.
Oh, well.
So he must have
Not in
decided to transfer that over to Spain.
not in Spain though.
And it's interesting, like the Colorado River. It almost looks like, and because I have not been the further south points of that river, but it does not quite make it. It looks like to the Gulf of California and Baja, and Sonora would be just east of there, on the mainland part of Mexico. But
It is a Schedule 1 in the United States.
Whoops. There you go.
Huh.
So it's not not something you should be doing. So, but this guy, of course, he was trying to make Nacho. I'm sure his porn star status, being 46, has gone down. So he's trying to make money. The story also did say that he sells a lot of toys on a website. He's a
Toys.
Yeah, he's a
What kind of
Like
toys?
trucks and...
no, like
trains?
sex toys.
Oh,
type stuff.
okay.
Like pretty much his, you know, his unit,
And then
type of deals.
And then, so if you're interested in psychedelics, you're basically saying stick to truffles and mushrooms and stuff like that. Maybe even acid.
I mean, obviously the guy is, who knows if he's actually a shaman? Who knows if he believes in this stuff, or he was just doing it for cash? But he is now going to go to jail.
Well, what's this other story you got with the British?
Oh, the British thing? Yes. Well, of course. So, as you know, there have been numerous lockdowns around the globe for coronavirus. And England had one that was saying, they opened it back up and said, well, you can have people in your house. You could do the thing. But now they're saying, whoa, hold on there. We gotta justify what we meant by that. It's now saying having sex in your own home with someone from a different household is illegal.
Like that's an actual law now?
Yeah, it is. After the government altered its coronavirus legislation. At 11:30 a.m. on this Monday, change to the law was introduced that bans two people from different households in England gathering in an indoor private place during the coronavirus lockdown.
So does that mean they have to do it publicly?
I'm going to get to that. You're jumping the gun a little bit.
Sorry.
Don't beat him to the funny part here.
No person may participate in a gathering which takes place in a public or private place indoors and consists of two or more persons. The amendment bill reads, this differs from the previous legislation which prohibited people from leaving their home at all without a reasonable excuse. Anyone breaking the law can be fined £100, half to £50 if paid within 14 days.
Not very.
Okay.
That's not a hefty punishment.
I'm glad.
However,
bad.
one lawyer pointed out a potential loophole in the legislation. George Pertez, QC, tweeted that his reading of the law indicated that someone could potentially have sex with an escort in their home, as it might be deemed legal for work purposes.
Okay.
Nice.
And this is what he said. As I read this, unless you live together, it is now unlawful to have sex with your lover indoors, but fine outdoors, subject to public decency offenses, where you can have sex with an escort indoors, as that is reasonably necessary for their work purposes.
Loopholes, people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And other essential
we
services.
should pause and allow Dave to comment on this. He always has an opinion about something like this.
No, well, I will say I think as it pertains to us here in the United States, I think fortunately we can partake in those acts, and I think
we can.
as of today we're limited to 10 people. You can only
you can have an orgy.
Yes.
but you're limited to 10 people. I think as of Wednesday it's going to be 25 people.
It's
Right.
20
Things can
people.
start
You're
getting
gonna
in.
get
And that's a party.
rowdy.
That's a bit of a party.
That's what
Here
you
for the
call it.
gangbang.
So,
Again, I mean, I have my opinions.
It's
on
just
this,
weird
but-
that England had a thing on the book saying you could not leave your house and go to somebody else's house for
it's
whatever.
It's
but then
one-
they're saying, well, you really now you can, but then you
But-
did it again.
So
So now
the
you
escort
can't.
has to leave
People-
their
so
house.
Dr. Fauci
Yeah.
would disagree with
yes, he
Well,
would.
Fauci would, yes.
He would.
He-
because
not
he
have that.
explicitly said
Don't do that.
Just
that you can go and meet someone on Tinder
Yes.
or
Yes.
Grindr.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And-
he did say that,
and-
didn't
yeah,
he?
that's what he said. Yeah,
We
if you're
talked
being
about
careful,
Yes.
And you see too much of this. It's like people are just creating these rules and laws like just off the cuff. They're off the cuff. Like they're not thinking about things like where you can go into here, you can do this, you can do that, but you can't if you're two single people living in isolated households. You can't do that. Like it doesn't make any sense. You can go to the store and touch this and touch that and do this. And if you're talking about how the virus spreads, like you got to look at more of a general kind of, you want to limit the number of people.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a one-on-one experience. I don't care what you're doing. You're talking about one person and another person, two people. Like it's what they want to do with social distancing
I
is
think what they
limit
should have
the
done
numbers.
Was said if you want to have sex with someone,
yes,
you need to go through these procedures.
that's right.
Right.
Take their temperature, wear a mask.
Wear masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because technically an escort could be
kissing.
a super spreader.
Yes.
Right. No kissing, right?
Yeah, no kissing. Most escorts, I think, are
Probably.
Not kissing
I don't
people.
know that.
Not
for
into
any-
it.
so the
Well,
mask thing is probably a
You need like all in any whether you're talking about pandemic or not, you need protection. Like you just now you need full body protection, face masks, and
We're talking about are we
Sure,
talking about
sure.
hazmat suits? We could do hazmat suits.
We could.
We could do that.
That would make things difficult.
A hazmat sex suit. We could. If somebody hasn't come up with that yet.
with a built-in condom.
I feel like there's somebody ready to patent that. There's got to be.
Well, I told you guys. Did I tell you guys about this the other day? There's a company that has now patented a coronavirus bar, going out to the bars type of protection. So it is like a helmet and a whole upper body thing with an air thing in the back, and then it's also got 2 slots. One slot for drinking, so you put your beer into the drinking thing, and then there's a straw that comes out, and then you sip it. And there's another spot for vaping.
Oh
so
God,
you put
I've
your
gone
vaping
cross-eyed.
thing in there.
It's like a mobile. What was? Wow, my age is hitting me.
Yeah.
You're down on the ground floor, and they pour the beer in the funnel.
Yeah, it's like a mobile. Yeah, exactly right.
What's that called?
Bong?
A beer
Beer
bong.
bong,
There we
yeah,
go.
yeah.
So it's like a mobile beer bong.
But
I hadn't thought about that in 20 years.
Yeah, I
But
was
it's
like,
also-
oh shit,
I don't do that
I'm getting
anymore.
too old.
But it's also it covers you, so you can't get it.
Yeah.
And it would remind me of, if you guys have seen the movie Contagion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So when what's his name's character is putting the flyers on the cars, he's wearing something like a kind of a makeup one where he's got the bubble on his head and it's kind of just on his upper body.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like, but it's got 2 things, one for beer and one for vaping.
Interesting.
So, if you want to vape during the coronavirus and you want to be at a bar, you can do that.
They must personalize those suits for vaping or for eating or for drinking or.
I don't know how you'd eat in there, though.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to almost have like a blender unit if you're going to eat.
Maybe.
They'd blend it in there and then it's
Well,
into a straw.
you could have like a staging area. So you have a door that they can fit the burger in, and then they close the flap, and then you open the next flap, and then you can eat it.
See,
I have seen people come out with the coronavirus mask, and they've got a little patch right here that's got a little probably like Velcro or whatever, and you can open it up and then sip out of something and then
I've
close it
seen
back
that.
up.
Yeah, it's like a little window where you could
Yeah.
put some beer into.
Yeah.
And just start drinking out of it.
We're getting crazy with all the coronavirus shit.
I guess whatever you got to do, right?
Well, yeah, exactly
DM us,
right.
DM us with your with all listeners. DM us with your kind of cool coronavirus drinking ideas.
So now on Tinder, we're not gonna. When you swipe right, is it swipe right, Dave? I don't know.
It is, yeah.
That's swipe. So you swipe right to a girl. Are you gonna say, "Send me a pic of your mask"? Or what? I mean, it's no more. Send me a pic of your boobs. Send me a pic of your mask, please. I want to see your
I want
mask.
to make sure you're.
Well, make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't want to. Let's not get specific here, but I think it's very simple. As it relates to the story, I think clearly England is going way too far with that kind of law. You know how I feel, and I think a lot of us feel the same way about authority and everything else. But clearly, you shouldn't outlaw that kind of encounter.
Well,
you just
no.
need to outlaw certain positions.
What?
And some are more obvious.
Whoa. Okay.
I said I wasn't going to get into details. I'm not, but I mean, just use.
I mean, at
use
this
your
point,
imagination.
you're pretty much as specific as you can get. You might
Pretty
as well.
much, yeah.
man.
The next step up is I won't go to the next step.
I get what you're saying. There,
Yeah,
there are
that's
some
like,
positions
yeah.
that are more risky than others.
Of course there are. Not only for coronavirus, but other things.
There's some
too.
positions that are more risque than others as well.
exactly.
Risky,
True,
risky, yeah.
Jesus.
So,
no.
guys, I found something kind of interesting. So I found a complete historical team list from when the Thunder were a team of all the teams they've played in the league.
What?
Like it's
Of all of them?
all of them, and there's 2 different lists. There's one from indoor and one from outdoor. It looks like.
Wait, Thunder was indoor?
That was a good transition,
Well, there
by
was
the way. And I'm sure you're going to edit that last part out. Anyway.
I don't edit.
Hashtag Dave talks about positions.
Yep.
In fact, that's all the title's going to be. Dave talks about sex positions that
Dave's
are
a new-
riskiest for COVID.
Dave's a new coronavirus sex expert. That's what he is.
Right.
He can make some money on that.
Or no, actually, looks like there's one from SISL and one from USISL.
Yes, back to the list, yeah.
Huh, that's kind of cool.
So
Where's
there are
that
2
located?
parts. It's on Wikipedia. There's 2 parts. One's a lot shorter than the other, so I'll do the shorter one this time. So we will start. They go in alphabetical order. First one is the Amarillo Challengers. That one's kind of cool.
It's wasted.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
They were only
Armadillos.
from.
Come on.
They were only from 1986 to 1990.
Armadillos. Come on.
Yeah,
Armadillos.
Armadillos.
Let's do it.
The Arkansas Diamonds are another one.
They have diamonds in Arkansas?
Interesting.
Maybe they mine diamonds in some.
I don't know.
In the little rocks they have down there.
The little rocks. Way to go, Connor. Dad
That
joke.
was pretty good.
That was a dad joke.
That was
You're
long.
not
That was
even-
major.
and
dad
you're not
joke.
even a dad, are you?
You're ready. You're ready.
You're
for
ready
that.
to have a kid now.
I've been
good.
making dad jokes since I was like 10. We got the Atlanta Express.
Yeah.
The what the hell is this? The Austin Sacadillos.
Sacadillos?
So Socadillos.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
what I would say. Sacadillos.
The Sacadillos.
Is that like we're trying to get the Mexican people to like our stuff?
Right, it
But-
sounds
They're
a
down in
little-
Austin.
but-
It sounds a little racist.
Yeah, it does a little bit. What year was? I mean, do we know what year that was
Yeah,
formed?
so it was like 1987 to 1991. It looks like.
Oh, look at that. See, 87.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still kind of,
We're not
Texas
quite there
back
yet.
then.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
as far as I can tell, that's a made-up word. So
Yeah.
Yeah. The Colorado Comets are another one. The El Paso Patriots. I think I've done that one a couple times.
Yeah.
On,
Okay, El Paso Patriots.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
That makes no sense at all.
Who were formerly known as the El Paso Six Shooters.
Okay,
And-
that makes sense.
That makes
That
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And the El Paso Spurs.
Again,
Again,
makes sense.
Makes
or
sense.
the El Paso Revolvers.
Right.
Yeah,
There you go.
that'd be cool.
Mhm.
The Fort Worth Kickers were down there.
Ah, jeez.
Jeez.
And then they had a couple other names too. The Garland Genesis.
What?
Garland? Like
Garland.
Texas?
Yeah.
Did the owner like love Phil Collins or what?
Maybe, I don't know. He must have been a big fan of comics too, because they were also known as the Addison Arrows.
What?
Maybe they liked alliteration with these.
I guess,
with
yeah.
these names.
Yeah.
And then they merged with the Waco Kickers.
Waco?
Waco had a team.
Waco had a
Was that
team.
Was that-
pre or
yeah.
post David Koresh?
It
Yeah.
was pre.
Thank God.
Because this was 1990. It looks like, and I think
Yikes.
Waco happened in '93.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 93. Yeah.
You'll like this one, Tony. The Georgia Steamers.
Oh, see now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
oh boy.
Unless your team is in Cleveland, you cannot be called You cannot be called the Steamers.
I mean, can you really like trains that much to? I mean, I assume they're talking about like.
Yeah, it's got to be trained. Yeah.
we gotta be
Manually.
trains, but I'm telling you, it's gotta be Cleveland. It
They've,
cannot be
they've got a
anything else.
disturbing fascination with trains. I don't care what their history is.
Yeah, it's weird. The Houston Express. That's the Atlantic Express. I don't know. The Lubbock Lasers.
Lubbock, Texas had a
Lubbock,
team,
That
Texas.
is
had a
bizarre.
team.
and they're the Lasers.
Texas
They
had
were
like
the
a dozen
Lasers.
teams.
Maybe they turned
too.
from the LA Lasers into the Lubbock Lasers.
Oh.
The Memphis Rogues. I think I've done that one a couple
Yeah.
times. Before.
Rogues, yeah.
The Nashville Metros.
I mean, there's so many things you could have done with Nashville.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, something
Musicians.
music related. Yeah.
The New Mexico Chiles.
Oh,
Oh,
that's just bad.
Hey now.
Yeah.
That's
Hey.
just bad.
Which,
Boys-
by the way, they were at first the Albuquerque Outlaws.
That's okay.
The Albuquerque Gunners.
That's okay.
And the New Mexico Roadrunners.
Again,
Again,
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
The Chili's, why don't you just call them the
Man.
burritos? I mean,
Right.
come on, guys.
I mean,
Jesus.
that's like the California surf.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
that.
The Oklahoma City Warriors. That's pretty generic, I think.
Yeah.
OKC
I mean,
Warriors.
it makes
yeah.
sense because their license plate. They have the one license plate that's a Native American, like
Yeah,
shooting a bow or something
yeah,
like that.
that makes sense.
This one was weird. This one, Permian Basin Shooting Stars
No kidding.
from Odessa, Texas.
Odessa.
What?
Odessa's known for football, like
Yeah, that
American
is-
football.
That is
Yeah,
the
that's
heart
soccer.
of
That's
high
where
school football.
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah,
is,
exactly right.
Yeah.
So we have Odessa, we have Garland, we have Fort Worth, we have
Yep.
Lubbock,
Lubbock,
Amarillo.
Amarillo, Austin, El Paso, Addison.
You'd almost
Waco.
think that Texas actually likes soccer.
They don't.
Yeah. And you see how filled up that Houston Dynamo Stadium is.
Well,
every
here's
time.
okay. Here's the problem with we talked about Texas with soccer before. They can't fill up their damn stadiums. They don't like soccer there.
No.
I mean they
They're,
just
they're,
don't.
They're a Friday Night Lights.
They are Friday Night Lights, and they're also baseball. They are baseball and football. That is their deal.
Yeah. Oh, God. There's another... Oh, okay, so here's the Phoenix Hearts.
Huh?
That's all right.
Okay.
It's not bad.
But here's another Texas team. The Richardson Rockets.
Richardson, Texas?
Yeah.
I don't even know what Richardson
Is that like a county or is that a town? It's got to be a
Uh,
county.
No, it's a city.
What?
It's a suburb of Dallas.
Okay. All right.
So like Frisco FC Dallas.
Yeah. They turned into the Dallas Rockets, by the way.
That'd be like the Twins call themselves the Bloomington
the Houston
Twins.
Rockets.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, it won't be long, and Texas is going to have 3 MLS franchises, right? I mean, with Austin coming in.
I'm so excited for when Austin joins. I think that'll be
But do you think people are actually going to go? That's my thing.
Austin, Texas, the Austin FC actually had 30,000 deposits.
They're an interesting city.
And it's almost like Austin is. I'm not going to call it. It's almost like a bubble in Texas. I've never been to Austin. I've been all over Texas. I've been to Dallas, Houston, Corpus Christi, even further south. I've driven through, but I've never been to Austin. I've only heard good things.
The reality is, if our away game to Austin doesn't line up with South by Southwest, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
Because
That'd be good.
it's a cool town. It's a really
I
cool
think
town.
Austin is more progressive than most of
They're
Texas.
nothing like Texas.
Dallas or Houston, yeah.
Yeah, like they formed a little bubble, like you're saying. They formed a little bubble around Austin and said, hey, this is what we're at.
Yep.
San Antonio Generals, who
I suppose
also
that makes
formed the
sense,
San Antonio Heat.
Oh, the Heat.
The Tucson Amigos here.
Jeez. Come on, you guys.
The Tulsa Renegades. And the last one, the Wichita Tornado.
Oh, that makes sense.
That makes
Wichita,
a lot of
yeah,
sense.
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I like it,
Yeah.
actually.
It makes
Oh,
sense.
that's pretty good.
Makes sense.
Amigos.
The Amigos. That's. I mean, obviously these teams were created back in the '80s when we didn't have issues with, I mean, come on, look at some of the commercials from the '80s.
Right.
There were some really bad commercials in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's true.
Terrible commercials.
Then there's the other list, which I'll save for another time.
Yeah. There you go. So.
I was going to say this episode has got kind of long, but you can't blame
Yeah,
us.
we-
It's
we-
just
Yeah, we're bad together. Come on.
it's been so long since
yeah.
we've done this as a group.
Anybody
that,
that's pissed at this is just piss off.
Yeah.
Don't listen to us.
It's
Listen
so
to us.
long that I forgot.
Or at least
to-
download us and don't listen to us.
Yeah,
I
that's
forgot
it.
to
That's what I tell.
mention
That's what I
things.
tell my family that's not interested in soccer. I say you don't have to listen, just download.
Right.
I totally forgot to do our little things that we need to do.
and
Oh, yeah.
there is one you don't have to do anymore.
What's that?
I don't remember.
Which one? The Icarus?
Yes.
Icarus FC.
Yeah. Okay. So
I
we
could
were-
have told you like half dozen times.
So
but
before we get out of here, guys, I do want to bring it down just a little bit and say that coronavirus hits everybody differently. I knew it would hit me at some point because my grandparents lived in a long-term healthcare facility. Both my grandparents passed away within days of each other in the last week. I'd like to say that I'll miss you, John and Nancy Terrio. And this pandemic is a bitch. But again, we're all dealing with it in some way, and we'll get through it. But I want to say that they will be missed, and it's been a really rough time for my mom's side of the family in the last week. So love you guys, and we'll see you again someday.
Yep.
I do want to say we were sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. I forgot to say at the beginning. And I want to say thanks to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. You can find us on, BGN.FM. You can find us on Spotify,
Minnesota Podcast Network.
Minnesota Podcast, iTunes, anywhere you can find a podcast. You can find us. We are still talking about doing this podcast every week, but
Yes.
every other week at a brewery, but every the other weeks doing it via Zoom, so you guys can come in and chime in.
And maybe like a shortened format, like on our off brewery weeks, maybe we do a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah,
just
depending on the
previewing
games.
the games. And I think
Yep.
that's going. I'm excited about that because it's gonna expedite some of our brewery podcasts where we don't have. I know we like talking about the games, but oftentimes when we do it every 2 weeks at a live brewery, we don't want to have to spend.
Yeah.
An hour talking about games that happened 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So
Exactly. Because most people are probably like, we don't care.
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
and I can't blame them for that. So,
Yeah.
so I'm really excited.
So
Me too.
a good thing that's come out of this pandemic is that we've figured out how to do a Zoom podcast.
Yeah.
And we have actually got people on it, and it's been it's great. I mean, doing it the way we did it, I loved it.
Yeah,
and
that was fun.
Doing it, then doing a podcast every week, it makes it easier for us, especially for myself and David, because we have families and we can't always get out of the house.
Right, yeah.
And me, I might be able to participate in our podcast
That's
even
true.
if I'm traveling
No,
for work.
no. If you're out of the country, you're done. No,
Yeah.
you're on vacation. You're done. Yeah.
Next time you're in
Never mind.
Australia, just
Yeah, literally, I could join
No.
you from Australia
No,
if I had to. So.
We could have done. We could have done it when I was in Wisconsin Dells 2 years ago.
Could've.
We could have
Yeah.
done it on the damn thing instead of having Johnny do the intro, which was.
This is true.
Oh, there's the
Oh,
first
there's
Johnny
the Jo-
reference. Man, it took
reference
2
Johnny
hours.
at the
but
last part of the
At
podcast.
1:55,
Good
finally
Lord
pulled him
Almighty,
in.
Johnny. He's in Duluth today, by
Yeah.
the way. So, for myself, Tony, for David, Dave, and Connor, we'll talk to you guys in a couple weeks.
All right, see you.
see you guys.